So you've cut your pattern pieces out, or you've got pattern pieces for a jeans style pocket. This one's got an additional bit. You might have a garment where it's just the pocket bag facing goes all the way up, but like a jeans they have this, you just seam neat in the edge and it goes on the pocket bag, and then that is in the actual main fabric, and it is just top stitched on. It's just all about bulk, cost effectiveness, reasons that they do it when you look inside a pair of jeans. So you just seam neaten it and then you just top stitch that on your pocket bag, which the pocket bag's normally there's something called pocketing, which is like a cotton. You see it on jeans and things like that. It's just a strength strong. But some standard ladies menswear, well ladies wear, they'll just use the whole pocket bag in self fabric. So it depends on the thickness. Obviously if you've got a thick wool or something like that, then it might be too bulky, so you need to make sure it's in suitable fabric. So I've now just made my pocket bag. Now this section on the jeans, I'll just put that to one side for the minute, because that forms the rest of the trouser, the bit that's missing. You'll have, if you've got a trouser and a trouser front, I would pin it together at the centre fronts for later on to put your zip or anything in, or you might put your zip in first, it depends on your construction, just so you know which is right and wrong sides. But I'm only working on one half, so if I pinned it together, we'll deal with that in a minute. Put that to one side. I'm looking for my pocket facing. The pocket facing, make sure you get it the right way round, that it should be identical to the shape should match. So whether this is a slant pocket or a jean style pocket, these go right sides together. So this is the outside, the right side, that's the right side. You can't tell with this fabric, and you need to make sure that it looks the same, because sometimes they look similar, but you want your pocket bag to be at the bottom, so you can see it looks a bit like a nose of a character, cartoon character. And we're just sewing the shaped edge, whether that's a slant or some funky shape that's been designed, we're just sewing that, snipping it and then trimming round. Not going down the sides, not going along the top, just around the pocket facing. So we're just sewing that pocket opening, that pocket edge. I'll take that to the machine. Depending what seam allowance you've got, either it'll be trimmed down. This instance it might be different, so it's always good to check what the seam allowance is. This is 1 centimetre or 3/8 of an inch, and carefully sew it around. Following the shape all the way round. Okay, because this is a curve, it's not going to fold back on itself without being snipped, because this is a short edge which needs to be allowed to open up, so that edge needs to be snipped. So nice sharp scissors, which I don't think these are, and just snip along that edge up to the stitch line, which allows it to open up when it's turned. If you've got bulky fabrics, you might consider layering the seams or reducing the seam allowance down. That allows you to turn it through to the right side. Now on jeans they have top stitching, so you would just press that so it goes right on the edge and then do some decorative top stitching. Otherwise you might consider an understitch, so it depends on how you want it to be. An understitching is the seam allowances are being stitched to the facing. This is the pocket facing, so make sure that all those seam allowances are pushed over and you pull it apart so there's no crease or pleat. Do that all the way around, keep checking you're not stitching something you don't want to be. Right, and that makes it nice roll over, because I've done this as a contrast. You can see if you did have a pocket, sometimes they might understitch it and top stitch it. Check other garments, other makers, to see what the requirements are on the instructions, and roll that over. Obviously you'll take that, and you can see by understitching it, it rolls it onto the inside. Then you could do your top stitching. So give that a press. Now, how you go back to the first bit, you get your pocket bag. Now it depends if you want a French seam or just them sewn together. So if you're just going to sew them together, I'm going to get my camera high. It is just a case of lining up any notches that you've got. So I would have the bottom of the pocket bag here, and you're just pinning the two pocket bags. At this time you're not catching the garment. So if you just want a seam showing and then overlocked and that will show on the inside, you just line up the pocket bags and sew from the waist seam around the curve edge and then back out again. Don't worry about anything else. And then overlock them. If you would like a French seam, line them up the same, but remember that you will be putting, when we sew a French seam, we put wrong sides together and then trim and right sides together. So that's we want the French seam to not have the bulk on the inside. So I've grabbed the inside of the pocket to then sew the French seam. You sew the first one and then trim it down. And then make sure any notches, if at any point your pocket bags don't quite match, just make sure they're laid flat rather than forcing them to line up, because what you don't want is any twist. So it's just important that you've pinned it from one end all the way round and it lays and meets nicely rather than you forcing it. Sometimes they just misalign a little bit. I've got a notch there. I know that will work. So the first seam is actually on the inside of the pockets. Okay, then because it's a French seam and it's much better if you do then trim it down small to make sure all your edges are caught when you sew the second one. So trim that right down to under 1/2 centimetre, 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. So when you sew the French seam, none of that's going to poke out. Then you'll just turn it through and it will be like the same way as if you were just going to seam it without worrying about a French seam. So now I can put my pocket bag to the inside, so that the minute that's got that raw cut edge, that goes to the inside. So now it's like as if you were going to seam it. Turn it round so it's the inside of the garment, and that first French seam I would press it, but this now we can French seam it all the way around just that curved edge of the pocket bag, not the side seam, not the waist, just the curved edge of the pocket bag. Obviously press it first. I'm just doing this as a quick demonstration to show you the process. Make sure that the seam's right on the edge, and when you sew your French seam, make sure that you catch that raw cut edge to the inside. You can put your hand inside to help poke that onto the edge if you haven't pressed it. Obviously take your time, not like me rushing my demonstration. Goes all the way around, and then it sits. It's a nice finish on the inside of the garment because it's all seam neatened, and we French seam it this way round so that there's nothing on the inside of the pocket for any dirt or anything to get caught in. You wouldn't want this French seam on the inside of the pocket. So you just want a nice clean line on the inside of the pocket bag. because they get quite dusty, bits get caught in it. And the French seam's a strong self-neatening seam and is used on the jeans pockets. Okay, so then the inside of the garment, the pocket bag, it will fold nicely. You can see why you had to snip that seam so it's opened up. And then this will lay, for the edge, it will lay flat where your design line is. And just pin that in place along the waist. So that all lines up. And then this will all lay nice and flat. There's your pocket bag, all nice and French seamed. And then just make sure that seam, it's folded so that the pocket seam's down. This is flat. The pocket seam's there, it comes up, and then it lays, and you should have a notch. And that just all lines up. So put some pins in there to line them all up. And then you've got a jean style pocket, which is curved. Obviously it's all the same, that's the actual pocket bag, but you can see that it's got the pocket, or it's all fabric on there. So that's the outside if you had top stitching, decorative stitching, and then on the inside it looks beautiful because it's all French seamed. Now where I've pinned it, I would just do a row of stitching along that waist seam and along the side seam just to tack it in place, baste it so it's there, holds it, so that when you join your side seams that's all then caught in, or you're putting your waistband on. So that is your jean style pocket finished with a French seam on the pocket bag.